Five-time major champion Maria Sharapova has announced that she will no longer be playing professional tennis. The Russian made the retirement announcement in a Vanity Fair essay, citing injuries as being the reason she's hanging up her rackets.
How do you leave behind the only life you've ever known? How do you walk away from the courts you've trained on since you were a little girl, the game that you love, one that brought you untold tears and unspeakable joys, a sport where you found a family, along with fans who rallied behind you for more than 28 years? I'm new to this, so please forgive me. Tennis, I'm saying goodbye. When I was 6, I traveled across the globe to Florida with my father. The whole world seemed gigantic back then. The airplane, the airport, the wide expanse of America, everything was enormous, as was my parents' sacrifice. The first courts I ever played on were uneven concrete with faded lines. Over time, they became muddy clay and the most gorgeous manicured grass your feet could ever step upon. But never in my wildest dreams did I think I'd ever win on the sport's biggest stages and on every surface. Wimbledon seemed like a good place to start. I was a naive 17-year-old, still collecting stamps, and didn't understand the magnitude of my victory until I was older. And I'm glad I didn't. My edge, though, was never about feeling superior to other players. It was about feeling like I was on the verge of falling off a cliff, which is why I constantly returned to the court to figure out how to keep climbing. These courts revealed my true essence. Behind the photo shoots and the pretty tennis dresses, they exposed my imperfections, every wrinkle, every drop of sweat. They tested my character, my will, my ability to channel my raw emotions into a place where they worked for me instead of against me. Listening to this voice so intimately, anticipating its every ebb and flow, is also how I accepted those final signals when they came. Shoulder injuries are nothing new for me. Over time, my tendons have frayed like a string. I've had multiple surgeries and spent countless months in physical therapy. I share this not to garner pity, but to paint my new reality. My body had become a distraction. Tennis showed me the world, and it showed me what I was made of. It's how I tested myself and how I measured my growth. And so in whatever I might choose for my next chapter, my next mountain, I'll still be pushing. I'll still be climbing. I'll still be growing. The end.
She further explained her injury struggles in a New York Times interview with Christopher Clary, saying, "As I think you've seen throughout my career, my perseverance has been my greatest tool, my greatest strength. But I've started feeling like it was becoming a weakness because the stubbornness that was keeping me going for wrong reasons. 14 hours of my day in the last 6 months have been just like caring for my body. Before I get on the court each day, I'm tied to like an ultrasound machine or another machine or a recovery unit. It basically comes on with a lot of repetition, and I have a bump on my forearm and I can't lift my hands, and it starts with one hand, then it goes to the other. It's like shin splints in my forearms. Unfortunately, injuries are plaguing her and are taking away that enjoyment of the game. Now it's time to begin a new chapter of comfort and enjoyment." Maria currently has ventures outside of tennis with her Sharapova candy brand and formerly attending Harvard Business School. I'm certain in the upcoming years, she'll have even more business ventures available to her. People have been talking about Maria retiring for a while now. I think the conversation started in mid-2019 after a minor shoulder surgery sat her out for over 5 months. Since this surgery, she won only 2 additional matches, garnering 7 losses. She ended her 2019 season early with the same shoulder injury still being prevalent. Her losses since the mid-2019 comeback weren't terrible losses by any stretch, as she frequently lost to top 20 players. Still, it's really hard for her to challenge for those bigger tournaments and matches, which is a crucial reason why she decided to call it quits. The constant injuries set her back more and more and made it increasingly difficult to maintain a high level of play. Maria isn't going to settle for being a decent top 50 player, regardless of her love for the game, so with these recurring problems, she felt enough was enough, and I completely agree. I do have to mention the importance her drug ban from meldonium had in her steady decline. After the 2016 suspension, Maria came back in the following year okay, making the US Open second week and winning her final tour title in Tianjin. In 2018, she had a promising clay court season, reaching the Rome semifinals and Roland Garros quarterfinals. Here to the US Open, there were no injuries, just poor play, but after her fourth round appearance in Flushing, she ended that season due to the right shoulder. People have said that without her meldonium, she can't stay injury-free, and I do have to admit that it is really crazy that she's had all of these problems in the last 3 years jumbled up like this. The shoulder has always been an issue for Maria though, for she's had 3 major shoulder surgeries pre-drug ban. Regardless of how we may feel about her controversial history, her persistence and fighting spirit are admirable and are some of the main things we'll remember about her. Regarding her way of retiring from the sport, I do feel like it is kind of anticlimactic. Being such a huge star, I'd expect her to embark on a farewell tour and have an emotional final match like Caroline Wozniacki did. Instead, she ends her career as the 369th ranked player, her last match being an opening round Australian Open loss to Donna Vekic. She may decide to come back in the future, but judging from her personality and the way she conducts herself, I find this highly unlikely. In the Times interview, she said that she knew as a child she never wanted to have a farewell tour. She also expressed that meldonium was not a contributor to her injuries and subsequent retirement. Rather, it was a long ongoing chain of events stemming from her early 20s. I was never a Sharapova fan, but she was the defining figure of my time as a tennis fan, and it's crazy that she's no longer playing. Thank you for those memories, Maria, and I wish you a great retirement.